Alright, y'all, one last video here. I'm pretty much done with my final burn. Now, I would suggest using gloves. Even I would suggest using welding jacket if you do this, unless you're like me and you're already scarred up and you don't give too fast. But the reason I used the brick and I did it like I did is these holes will sometimes plug up. I got a little plugged up hole right there. You probably can't really see it, and I'm not going to get my phone too close. But you'll always get airflow around it too. So you get center airflow, you get outside airflow. This one I already kind of, if you can't see, burnt out. And I didn't refractory these in. So I did that with my last forge, and I really didn't like it because these bricks will deteriorate over time. And then these holes plug up, and then you're always trying to either re-drill them out with, sometimes it's slag from the molten metal, sometimes it's just slag from the coal, if you get some coal that's got some impurities in it, stuff like that. They're a pain. If I can just replace the bricks and still get airflow around it, to me, when I was engineering this particular forge, I thought that was a good idea. Now, I know there's going to be people going, oh, this is going to be a cold spot. Yes, I've already thought about that. Here's the thing is, when this thing's full of coal, if I'm doing a full length burn, once that coal's hot and it's honeycombed, this part should retain the heat to keep the metal hot. If I have to do a little bit of back and forth just to make sure this whole section is heated, I can. When it comes to forge welding, I only wanted one burner. I didn't plan on trying to forge weld something that's 2 feet long. I mean, if you look, this is literally, this is roughly 18 inches of steel. So if you look at it, I've got something that's at least 24 or maybe a little bit more inches long. So right now I'm just trying to burn out the little bit of, and you can see the airflow down there. Look at that. And this was just charcoal briquettes that I use for the heat treat. Coal, you'll get sparks with coal, but it's not as dangerous as, say, charcoal briquettes. And you can forge with lump charcoal or charcoal briquettes. They do get hot enough. The heat is much more inconsistent, and it's not as the fuel wise, it's not as it doesn't last as long. So I prefer using coal. I know it's a little bit more pain in the ass, but if you're just trying to start out and you want to get a project done and you don't want to take the time to find some coal that doesn't cost you an arm and a leg on Amazon or something like that, or from a forge company that, hey, yeah, I can buy it for 25 bucks a 40-pound bag, but then they want to charge you $150 for shipping. Yeah, smithing coke is really, really hard to find. I usually only use smithing coke when I'm doing blades or something that's really, really important to have very minimal impurities in. I normally just use regular coal. You can get, like, you can literally throw in a steam engine for most of my other projects, because you do not need smithing coke. You can make that coal. Oh, it doesn't honeycomb. Stick it, fucking pound on it a couple of times. If you can't break it up with a hammer, what I do is I'll take a project that's just simple and I'll use it for my base my base heat, and I'll burn the coal down. And what a lot of people don't realize is, oh, once coal's burnt, blah, 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 blah. No, I might use the same coal in my forge for 3 or 4 heats, depending on how big and how much coal I have in there. The one thing that I don't like about this one that I did have on my other one, on my clamshell, is I had a place to put extra coal around it, which will help retain heat, but I also have the refractory cement for that. So this doesn't really have a place for the extra coal. It is a downside, but I get the length that I didn't get in the clamshell, which is just a round grill that I initially did this with. This fire is pretty much done, but yeah, and if you use the large lump coal, like your heating coal and stuff like that, like sometimes I find it at like like a rendezvous, or at like a swap meet where they're doing steam power stuff. I'll find it stuff there. I have found that you can buy coal at in about 40-pound bags at Harbor Freight if they got it in stock. But the other thing is the reason I didn't want these in, I can take these out now and I can clean. Where I couldn't before when I refractory cemented these in, I can take them out and I can clean. So I can get a little broom, I can clean this whole thing out. And then if you can see down here, that's why we have the drop point. So I haven't put the tabs on them right now, I'm using a block, but when the tabs are on them, this will give you all this space up to here to fill up with ash, so you still got the airflow going and the airflow's blocked, but you're not having to constantly stop and drop ash out, because you will get ash falling down and through, if you can't see. There's ash on the ground just from the cheer fires that I've had. So, but that's the skinny of it. Yeah, it took me a couple of weekends to do it. I only spent a few hours each day doing the stuff, and I changed it a couple of times in the process. So, but that is your basic forge. It will be ready to go. I'm not going to touch anything because this retains heat. That's why it's in here. It'll retain heat, and so it's still very, very warm.